Welcome back to Omni Mindfulness. And before we get started in today's episode, I'd like for you to ponder on the question, how do you prioritize your mental well-being in your daily life?
And I think that was such a big word in 2020 and 2021 when everybody was living on, Zoom and Microsoft Teams and whatnot. Have some grace. It's okay. You don't have to do everything. It's okay if you want to just sit around and be in your sweatpants and have, snacks all day. Like that was one form of grace. It was called survival. But another form of grace is just surrender your expectations that you have of yourself. And the fact that others may also have expectations, whether they're low, high, or whatever, it's like, just speak to it. Just say, hey, I'm going to need an extension, or I won't have that for you by tomorrow at noon. Real talk, this happened in my personal life, which is impacting my capacity and showing up the best way possible. Like ask for things that you're afraid to because of the expectations others have. I'm going to lean into the word surrender now.
Namaste, beautiful souls. I'm Shilpa, and you're tuned into the Omni Mindfulness Podcast, a sanctuary for spiritual entrepreneurs. As a holistic mindfulness coach and social marketing strategist, I'm here to guide you on a transformative journey. On this show, we explore captivating stories and provide practical tools that deepen your connection with your authentic self. Through the personal and professional narratives of remarkable individuals, we expand our consciousness and ignite the spark of possibility. Each season, I curate content that empowers you to create a holistic lifestyle encompassing spirituality, mindfulness, energy awareness, and mindset. Join me as we engage in conversations with experts in their respective fields and share solo casts from yours truly, all aimed at supporting you and relaxing, revitalizing, resetting your body, mind, and spirit. I'm your host and the visionary behind Omni Mindfulness. So what if just one story had the power to shift the trajectory of your life? What if you could become an instrument in helping others realize their true selves? And what if your soul's higher purpose lies in experiencing the joy of Omni Mindfulness? Remember, it's never too late to rewrite your story. And my next guest is the effervescent Anahita Champion. Anahita is an Iranian-American first-generation immigrant, now raising her own sweet multicultural family in the Twin Cities. She spent her college education immersing herself into cultural student organizations, collaborating with community partners. She studied strategic communication, earning her Master's of Arts in 2015 from the U of Minnesota School of Journalism and Communication. As a passionate leader, she has spent time previously operating her boutique PR agency for arts and entertainment, to storytelling as a media host, to engaging with event attendees as a correspondent, to consulting business owners to their own strategic messaging and philanthropic efforts, to sharing insights and encouragement on DEI. Anahita's goal is to cast a spotlight on incredible organizations, to amplify their work and support their causes. She loves contributing her skills and talent to a project, and she does so with transparency, collaboration, and compassion. And now, here is my conversation with Anahita. Welcome, Anahita.
Oh, hi, Shilpa.
I just love conversations with you, and I feel like I've gotten to know you over the last couple of years. And I handpick people for each topic. And the season of mindfulness in May is really about crafting presence through soulful storytelling. And I really feel like you have so much to offer on this topic. So without further ado, maybe with the audience, you can share your story.
Well, thank you. I love having these conversations as well. A little bit about myself. I am an Iranian immigrant, an Iranian-American immigrant, and I say that because I was 2 years old when I was born in Iran, and my family moved here in the mid 80s, and we landed here in Minnesota, where I am. Uh, Several uncles, cousins, family growing up. So family was always so important to me because they were there and it was very much part of our culture. So I grew up in a suburb of St. Paul, Minnesota, and I am the youngest of three. My siblings are 10 and 11 years older. So at times I felt like I was the youngest, and sometimes I felt like I was the only. And there's a different story and a different narrative within that whole journey. But I grew up, so I grew up in that house, in that neighborhood, and I went to college in the area, went to the University of Minnesota, got my master's from the University of Minnesota, and my young self was always an entertainer, always an uplifter, so much joy in this little Anahita. Ani was the nickname that I went by with family when I was little. And she was just such a spark of light. And then you go through your upbringing and you are who you are. And you get to middle school and that light kind of starts to flicker and it starts to sometimes dim. It never went out, but it was like dim. And I didn't like that. And so I can translate that into English here by saying there were times where I didn't quite know where I fit in. I wanted to blend in. I wanted a different name. I don't have a middle name, so I pretended I had one. And I wanted to, dress kind of what the kids were trending with. But here in this whole phase of, middle to high school, and even in my 20s, I just stood out. And I was, why would I blend in? And so in my 30s, I've realized there's just no point to exhaust yourself trying to fit in. There's no reason you need to blend in. You clearly stand out and own it. And so this was kind of a mental journey because of living in between, the Iranian culture and the American lifestyle. But I was Americanized, and I went against that for so long, taking offense when people would say, oh, you're such an American. But now, 39, I appreciate that so much, and I've done a lot of self-work, plus getting married, 7-8 years ago, and having a biracial daughter has given me such a different lens into the multicultural and beautiful world around me. So I've done some work personally to just own me. And that might even look different day by day, week by week, right? So that's a little bit of an introduction to me. My professional background is in communications and strategy. So I have had a PR agency. I have worked as a contract freelancer, owning my own business for 10 years. I've had some work in corporate. But I also do media work. So I'm hosting a couple of web shows, TV shows here in my neighborhood. And I'm working on a PBS project that I'm producing right now. It's really all about stories and empowering people to tell their stories, because I think there's so much value in that. So that's a little professional, a little personal.
I love the fact that you balance the two stories, given how your background influenced your personal life as well as professional. And I think it even went as deep as even who you married and the show that you created that I was on one time. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about that intersection.
Okay, so here's a funny story. At my wedding, my dad was doing his toast, and he's a man of few words. And for some reason, I hadn't asked him before, like, okay, here at this point, we're going to do toasts. I just, the day got to me and I'm like, oh, whoa, I forgot, Dad, you're doing a speech. He's like, I am. So he gets up and he says, when Ani was little, I remember she loved her dolls. She loved dressing up. She was, that kind of girl. And she said she wanted a new doll. So I took her to Target and we were looking and she was browsing. And I said, which one do you want? Do you want the white one, the brown one, the chocolate one, the brown hair, the blue eyes? And then she said, I want the chocolate doll. And everybody was laughing at my wedding because it was so cute. And the reason why it was cute is because my husband is Black. And so I selected the chocolate doll. And I say that particularly here because in my upbringing in an affluent Caucasian neighborhood, there were only maybe a dozen minority kids in my grade in this school. And for whatever reason, I migrated towards them all. We didn't have much in common, but the fact that we were different was the way that we united to each other. So you fast forward that into my adult years, and I've dated, white guys, Latino guys, Italian guys, Persian guys, and Black guys. Like, let's just say I had fun with the boys. But it really kind of gave me a chance to understand like who I connected with the most. And there's a cultural piece of it that was really significant to me. You kind of connect in a way where even though I didn't marry an Iranian man, there were a lot of traits that I didn't like in Iranian significant others in my own personal journey, and then some traits that I did. It wasn't that I was seeking a particular ethnicity, but it just worked out that way. Plus, I just find Black people so beautiful. Now, how we met is funny because we had a fellow producer who does music producing, and we were like actively on Twitter. And so my husband is from Detroit. He moved to the Twin Cities for school, and he's a hip hop artist and an entertainer. And he introduced us on a tweet, this friend of ours. And he said, hey, you got to meet this dope artist from Detroit. You got to meet Anahita. She's this awesome PR girl for the entertainment industry. So we connected, grabbed coffee. He hired me and then asked me out right afterwards. And so we went to the zoo on our first date. And then, the rest is history. So he's understood me in so many different ways than any of my other significant others, because he's also brought out certain narratives in me that I either downplayed or didn't quite understand how to formulate in my brain. So he's been helpful. He's also very an emotionally intelligent man, and it's helped me on my, I guess you could say mindfulness journey and working with intention. So it's been fun because we are a household of creatives. We entertain, we do marketing, we do strategy, we do storytelling. He's about to launch his own podcast. And so we've been talking about that because I too have a podcast, which you were on with my friend Lisa. But it's been beautiful to also open our eyes as parents and adults as we navigate parenthood with the sweet 8-year-old that we have, who's getting the best of both worlds. And I use best very loosely because she's also encountered cultural, moments that have not been very positive when she's been with her dad. But she also takes such pride in both sides. So it's just so wild to take a step back and watch this next generation evolve. And then we look at who we are and our values at home, be kind, value your boundaries, like all the things we talk about. It's a beautiful and sometimes frustrating journey.
Hey, sweet souls, thanks for listening. I know you are experiencing the desire to transition, find your purpose, and thrive. Maybe you're pivoting from one point in your life to a new part of your career or personal life. You're hoping to experience freedom, but feeling the drain of time, skills, and resources, along with the doubts of worthiness, capacity, and confidence, especially with the given new evolving technologies. I get it. I hear it all the time too. What I've done is put together a special group, a special process, and a special place for you to hang out, where we overcome those drains and doubts. I love to talk to you more about this if you're serious about making a change. If you're serious about accomplishing that dream. If you're serious about getting off the couch, getting off of whatever is holding you back, and actually getting somewhere with this thing. If you're serious about becoming a person of power, influence, and hope, and experiencing more emotional freedom, time, and better relationships. If you're serious about getting those dreams, I want to invite you to have a conversation about this. Let's see if this program is right for you and take the next step together. You deserve this. You can do this. Check out the link in the show notes below to reach out. Now back to the show. The theme is really being more present through storytelling. And I feel like when you said taking a step back, really you're taking it in, you're becoming more aware. And I find it interesting that your husband, he falls in that intersection between your professional and passionate personal life, which probably is not by accident. I mean, you're very present with him.
Yeah. And I mean, nothing is by accident, right? Even though I didn't necessarily have a plan, I was very confident in my own, lane of just I'm rocking my job and my career and my fitness and all the things. And then here comes this guy, and I was like, I'm good. I don't need a date right now unless you're really serious. Like, I'm good. And it worked out because it was necessary for both of us in that moment to find each other. But I, in this past year, have really, really lasered in on my wellness, but particularly taking yoga classes. And I have found the most amazing instructor. He's this 62-year-old man with red hair. He's so sweet. And the way that this particular instructor approaches his class and his dialogue and educating us, I've been taking his classes for 9 months or so. And even though he repeats a lot of the same things, it's so important for me to hear that in that moment, on that day, standing on that mat. It's also funny because he's also redefined what yoga is supposed to mean, not going through your, sun salutation over and over, which apparently is a very difficult, advanced set of yoga movements that beginners should have no business trying until you understand. So even just for me, practicing my well-being and focusing on being present for myself has allowed me to be a better significant other, because I'm practicing listening, and I'm listening to what the instructor says, but I'm also listening to my body. And I've never quite done that. Maybe it's ADHD, maybe it's I can't stop thinking about all the things when I'm in the room, but just being so focused. And then he always says this beautiful thing during different stretches or whatnot. He'll say, appreciate the gift you're giving yourself. And I'll be like, heck yeah, girl, you're doing it. Now, my husband, he's a Christian, and the way that he practices his faith is beautiful. It's him on his own journey. He also shares perspectives from other lanes that, people from different denominations have, which is so fascinating for me to hear, because I didn't grow up with any type of religion or faith. We knew there was a higher power, a God. We didn't know Jesus. We didn't know all these other, Allah or Buddha. So we just wanted to go and learn. And at some token, it kind of limited me from learning about one to be really knowledgeable, but at the same time we were free to just live our lives and do good. Now my husband comes along in my world, and he's on his own journey, and there have been times where I have felt like it's hard for me to listen to what he's saying because I have so many questions. I don't agree with everything. Some things are relatable, but the way that he explains things, like, it has allowed me to just find out like what the meanings are, but not have to feel forced into, you know, working my lane, working my life into that belief. So then I go to the mat, I go to yoga. I physically feel stronger. There's definition, my shoulders are stronger. But even with that, my daughter for months would say, Mom, don't go, don't go. And I'm like, Roya, this extra hug I love, but now I'm going to be 2 minutes late. And so for me, it's important to get there and not skip and just sit at home and cuddle with her, which I love to do, but it was a promise I made to myself. My motivation has been to be my most, my strongest self in so many ways. My strongest self by my 40th birthday, which is in July. And a lot of that is mindfulness. I'm already very intentional with the things I do, what I wear, who I'm with, things I say, projects I take on. But there's something about the power of me committing to going to my classes. At least it's 3 days a week. Sometimes it's 4 to 5. And like, that's my boundary. Like, there's an event I want to go to soon, but it's at 6 o'clock on a Friday. And that's when my class is. So I'm committed to that. It's my thing. Like, I need to do that for myself, show up for myself.
And my word for the year is holistic harmony. And it feels like you're really approaching 2024 or even beyond before that with holistic harmony, because you've got your act together. You have alignment, integrity, authenticity in your professional life, and you're also extending that to really honor your physical and emotional well-being.
Thank you. Act together is such a statement that I don't think a lot of people will say about themselves, but that is such a sweet compliment. It's constantly being practiced, right? So it goes so much deeper than getting to the gym and wanting to take a class. It's, if I can put myself physically first, which then greatly impacts my exterior and my mind, what kind of a leadership is that for my little one, right? I'm undoing a little bit of the things that I learned growing up, but also taking on some of those really great things that I learned growing up. And I want the wellness piece of it to be more highlighted, especially in this crazy world that we live in. There's so many distractions with digital, cyber, school, whatnot. So it feels good to me. I'm a calmer person. I feel more confident because I physically have become stronger. And I acknowledge that in my daughter's qualities too, when she's doing a gymnastics routine or something. But gut health, even, my gosh, there's so much junk in the foods that we eat, even when we think we're being healthy and organic, that impacts my skin, my hair, my brain fog. So for me to be super intentional has to start from a specific ground zero. And for me, I've learned since July of 2023, it's going to yoga. And for me, it was like almost starting fresh, because I've taken classes. I used to teach belly dancing. I used to go to a program called Orange Theory, which it was like super rigorous cross training. And I think I was just showing up to show up. In this rhythm that I'm in now, I think because I want to be a healthier version of myself, and coming up to 40, I'm like, I've been looking forward to turning 40 since I turned 30. I thought I'm so looking forward to this. I'm gonna be stronger, I'm gonna be wiser, I'm gonna be more experienced, and all the BS of trying to figure yourself out in your 30s will hopefully be behind me. I don't know that it ever really goes away, but it's given me extra motivation to kind of take myself a little bit more seriously. Plus, I'm making a lot of professional transitions too. Being self-employed for 10 years has been great, but I also realize, what if I had maybe just taken a little bit of a break from corporate and then gone back into the working world before realizing then a shift was maybe desirable to go back to entrepreneurship later in life. Instead, I went into entrepreneurship in my late 20s, and now I want to go back to the workforce, which again has been a very mindful journey for me because I needed that time to work from home with my little baby. I got to experience a lot of things that some people don't because they are, working outside of the home 5 days a week. My personal growth, my personality, my being gentle to myself when it comes to the structure and kind of the harshness of a lot of what this like corporate America has. I wasn't ready for that. I was healing. I left corporate America because I was healing from trauma that I experienced there. And now I'm so much more confident that I have a great amount of experience. I would be such an asset to whoever hires me next because of all the experiences I've had. And I guess I could toot my own horn. That doesn't happen very often. But it's a whole, like you said, a holistic picture. The confidence comes from the work I'm doing in therapy, in these amazing circles I'm connected with, in the yoga studio, in my marriage and family, the foods I eat, and then how I spend my time and my mental capacity on a work front. So I don't necessarily feel like I always have my act together, but it's intentional. I'm being mindful.
It's Hey, sweet souls, I love hearing from you. Fan mail is turned on. Check the show notes and send me a message. Really, when I say the expression act together, it's not necessarily about the external actions of being validated by others. It's more about, I feel like, alignment, because when you say your body, that I'm sure you realize that by becoming more in tune with your emotions, then you feel things somatically in your body and you become a little more, I think, wiser about,
Yes.
an example. Let's say something's bothering you about some project, and in the past, you would not have realized that that trigger in that heart is really that emotion appearing there. With yoga, it sounds like you're really getting tuned in with things more holistically.
And that's been, yes, exactly. You said it so well. That's been, and that's been for me. A lot of people might do photography or art or singing or going on walks in nature or, mountain climbing or whatever that looks like. So yes, for me, that is the healthy culprit to what's been growing in like a spider web form. Like so many things are interconnected with it. And it's not always easy. Are you kidding me? I mean, I said earlier, I had to redefine what that for me meant. It was kind of, what do we say? What do we say in yoga? It's like surrendering. I'm surrendering to the mat. And I did that in June or July of last year when I started up again after years of a break, to saying, okay, you hurt your back doing an exercise with certain weights that you didn't even realize you are not in the same boat to do in. I am 40 pounds heavier. I haven't actively worked out in X amount of years. I carry my confidence differently. I used to carry my confidence by a straight up posture, and I think I lost a huge sense of confidence. Um, just before the pandemic, I had some experiences in that old neighborhood that we lived in that I didn't like, and I didn't feel safe as much as I wanted to. So moving was a huge help, but then there was the pandemic. So my body changed a lot. We all gained that the COVID-19 weight. I guess you can kind of poke a little fun at that. But so really surrendering to the mat was me being honest with myself and saying, listen, you know nothing about nothing. Like, just start fresh, like give in, ask people questions when you're stuck on a project. Let people know transparently where you are. Did you meet the deadline? No. Why didn't you meet the deadline? You don't have to make excuses. Don't fake it until you're making it. Just let people know. Be honest, surrender, because then you're just going to hold more tension in your body. So the metaphor of taking it to the mat and surrendering in the yoga room is way deeper than actually stretching, which, trust me, feels phenomenal. But even in my line of work, Shilpa, is as a producer and a media host, taking all the wisdom, taking the ups and downs, taking this surrendering and being mindful. As a TV host, I'm always interviewing people. As a producer behind the scenes, creating a show, all of the things that I do, podcast, TV show, and producing, has to do with stories. And so I want to be really in the moment, which on this journey of, like, yes, yoga, but all the things I just said when it comes to surrendering allows me to be a better supporter when it comes to marketing. I do marketing for nonprofits, but also being an interviewer, being a mentor. I mentor a young gal, and then, being a mom and a wife. Those are some thoughts that are just floating right now.
Yeah, I've practiced yoga on again, off again. I'm yoga certified, and when I do go back on the mat, so to speak,
Yeah.
like due to COVID, I'm just going to blame COVID for now. I've been away from a lot of things, and the metaphor that you described really reminds me of what impact yoga has had for me, which is essentially that it's not about physical movement. That's part of the essence of what is happening physiologically. But if you start, let's say you're doing a sun salutation, you're affecting every muscle in the body as you do one full rotation. But as you're doing one full rotation, you're learning to expand and contract. You're learning to release and surrender.
Yes.
It's just like all those movements are metaphors for where you are or where you can apply it to become more present in life.
It's so wild. So for those that don't know what a sun salutation is, you start standing up and you take a deep breath, and you can come down to a plank. You can come down to a chaturanga, where you're kind of like your chest is up and your legs are out. And then you go to a downward dog, where you're making an upside down V, and all the things. That right there is so hard for me. I've never been amazing at it because shoulder strength and wrist strength. But in the dang motion, I'm literally surrendering to saying, oh my gosh, I want this to be over. But then I'm like, no, like, you're here for a reason. Don't fight the resistance. Like, you can do hard things. Just push through this. If you need to take a break, sit up tall for a second, take a break, and stretch your wrists out. So I'm actually physically talking about the action of this movement, but also very metaphoric. Like, we do that damn thing like 3-4 times. And so my cardiovascular system is working because I'm upside down and my head is, under my heart. And that's like taxing on your cardio, which is actually good for you. And it's like, wow, I'm doing it. Okay, 3 more, 2 more. Like, nothing is forever. You're constantly in this like temporary state of mind. And for me to even understand that and to just embrace it, even though sometimes things suck, like burning of your shoulders or whatever, or a really hard obstacle in your personal life or financial life or health or work, like it's just temporary. And that has been something, bless therapists. I've also worked with a great therapist who I've adapted all of those things. So for anyone that's in a really tough pickle or tough situation or doing some heavy weights or whatnot is challenging, like it's just temporary. And the other funny thing, this is so off par, but like when I'm listening to a song that's absolutely driving me crazy and I don't have control to change it, I just have to think, okay, there's probably 2 more minutes left. Okay, 30 more seconds left. The song is almost over. Is so awful. It's just temporary, like just kind of walking myself through this motion so I don't get psyched out and then distracted. So yes, my example today has been yoga, but it literally has helped me transform mental because of what it means. And it means something different for different people. Like I said, there's different extracurricular activities and forms of art if that's what people want, crocheting even, but it's not about the progress that you're physically and physiologically making. It's like psychologically so helpful to, if you can just sink in that moment and let yourself be surrender to it. That's such a great word. My word of the year is leap. Like I really want to take a leap in my well-being and in my career. So those are my motivations.
As well, because as you were describing metaphorically and how it's actually impacted you, it sounds like emotionally, psychologically, it's analogous to meditation because you're creating new neural pathways. So each time you're like describing, there's a song, and I'm just going to kind of patiently listen through it, but you're creating these new neural pathways that will then be triggered for other parts of your life. Let's say there's a challenging scenario, so to speak, in your professional life, and you have to just acknowledge, I will bypass this.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. So my daughter just recently had a birthday, and her party was at the Mall of America, which gigantic mall. I think it takes the average, I think there was a study done that says if you want to go to every single part of the mall from the top level to the bottom, all the like rides and all the stores, it takes like 8 full days. Like it's so big. Anyhow, for my daughter's birthday, we had different experiences for her set up, and it was all on the 3rd level. But at one point we had to come back down to where kids dropped off and got picked up. I was wearing this cute outfit that I felt so confident in. I bought myself a new sweater. I bought myself new earrings and pants recently. And so it was all leading up to the day, but it wasn't for the birthday. And the pants are a little long, so I had to wear my like ankle boots that had a bit of a heel on it. Well, listen, heels are overrated. That's not going to work. But I was like, okay, I could do this. I didn't realize how much we would be walking from experience to experience, and then holding a couple of the gifts that her friends brought her. And then also, a few minutes throughout each activity, we were running a little bit behind schedule. So I was like, oh, I got to get us to the 1 o'clock appointment. Oh, we have a, 12:15 cutoff. So navigating 4 second graders on a very busy Sunday at the Mall of America with all these circumstances, I was getting hot and sweaty. I was getting frustrated. My feet were hurting. And I was so proud of myself for just staying so calm, not letting myself really exchange any type of hostility in my voice, except for the one part where I was actually kind of nervous for them because they just walk around like drunk people all the time. Kids are so funny and they're easily distracted by the lights and the colors in the stores. So I was like, okay, single file line, everybody. So I gave myself so much credit in that one moment, now that I told this long story, because I thought, wow, you've really been practicing. You've been practicing all the things that you're learning. I learn a lot from my husband. I mean, if he wasn't into, marketing and filmmaking, he would be a great psychologist or professor. So we have great conversations. I learn a lot from that. And I'm such I give myself a lot of credit for being a highly aware person, self-awareness, I should say. So in that moment with those little girls on that busiest day in America, it was a moment of I felt so proud. You can, and it's important for people to feel proud of themselves. We don't do that a lot.
Yeah, I've been recently doing something called tapping. I don't know if you've heard about that, but in it you can acknowledge something that you're working on, but then you immediately replace it with something that you acknowledge that you're doing well. And I think in this case, whatever it is, you fill in the blank of the problem or issue or challenge. A lot of us probably have the same circumstances. But when you say something that's acknowledging, okay, I'm working on it, yeah. I acknowledge that I'm a, what do I call it? I'm a soul with having a human experience, doing the best I can do with the light, love, and consciousness that I have. And you're giving yourself grace. That's important, not only personally, but professionally, because you're saying I'm present with what is, but I'm also present with giving myself grace.
It's so important because we put on some wild expectations on ourselves that maybe even others have not verbally said to us, right? How many times have we experienced dating, and just because someone doesn't respond back within instant seconds, we start circulating things like, are they mad at me? Do they hate me? What did I say wrong? God forbid somebody like forgets, or they're busy, or, we're not talking about the dating world and ghosting. We're talking about the expectations that we have and putting that on our own shoulders sometimes too. It's like, I expected myself to have this deadline and to have it done perfectly, or I should have been further along. But give yourself grace. Life is lifing, right? Anything globally could happen today that could screw up somebody's mental state of mind for 4 days. You could be wearing heels to a gala Saturday, boots on a Sunday, and your legs would be sore as heck for 2 days. And I'm talking about myself. Which is like, oh my gosh, my body is physically exhausted. Yes, I have to work, but today I think I'm going to sit with a massager under this heated blanket and a laptop on my lap and get some work done. And that's my grace. I want to go back to the pride piece though, because it's not like, oh, she's got so much pride. And I think that's a beautiful thing. I've never thought this out loud until right now, but being arrogant and self-centered and narcissistic is a completely different ball game than recognizing the hard work you've put in and the resilience that you've had to recognize in that moment that proud moment is actually a massive acknowledgement of growth. And so physically, I was so excited to tell my husband about the 3 things I did differently in my last yoga class. And I said, not only did I surpass one thing I wanted to do, I actually pushed myself to do 3. And I showed him one, and he was like, wow, and he felt my arm muscle. He's like, I can feel that muscle. I'm like, I know, it was never there before. So I physically felt proud because I surpassed something that has been a challenge. But then in that moment when I was with the girls at the mall and I found myself not overreacting, not staying calm, like I was experiencing frustration. I was trying to be on time. I was trying to navigate safety, let the girls have fun. To recognize how proud I felt of myself in that moment was me being self-aware of the growth that I've overcome. Or that the growth I've had, not overcome. So I just want to encourage folks to be so patient with themselves and the experiences that they're in that moment. Is it a red light taking so dang long? There's probably a reason. There could be an accident that might happen, and you being behind that red light was meant to be. So you're out of harm's way. Maybe this takes a moment for you to sit in at that light and take a drink of water. Like, just, that's another scenario. Like, you just be in that moment. Like, there's a reason why you have things are slow or things are taking a while, right? Like in that waiting room. We're always in that waiting room. So take your expectations, put them to the side, be mindful and intentional in that moment. Like, what can you grow from? Or I'm not saying that right. What can you learn from that's going to give you a moment to feel proud, because it's a sign of growth. And I just honestly, slowing down is kind of my overall thing looking through this past year, is taking out so much. I didn't go to, I think, maybe more than 1 or 2 social events other than family and like girls like lunches in 2023. And then I came into 2024 feeling so charged. I've done more, I think, in 6 weeks than I did all of 2022 and 2023 combined, because I needed that whole year. I just needed to be in my sweatpants. I needed to go through the murkiness where I'm like, ugh, this isn't working. And then realize, okay, now I'm ready to make change. Yeah, you can eat healthy. Yeah, you can go to the gym, but what is your real goal? Like, what is your real motivation? You're not going to get progress and results based on what your expectations or goals are until you're really ready. And I was ready. Like, I was like, okay, 12 months till I turn 40. And now I'm like, oh crap, 4.5 months out. Let's go. Push it a little bit higher, sister.
Anahita, you're ready to leap.
I am taking that leap. Oh, what a fun visual. A girlfriend of mine whose logo and icon in her business is a leopard. I told her my word was leap, and she said, you know what? A group of female leopards is called a leap. And I was like, what? And in that conversation I had with her was so perfect, because it was like 4 or 5 of us gals talking each other up, complimenting each other, asking about like, good job, you're going to like consistency with yoga. Oh, nice job, hitting that financial milestone. Like, it was such a sweet thing. And I'm such a corny metaphoric person, so I was like, yeah, I am taking that leap with my leap of people.
Well, you did it with this notion. This goes back to the theme, is like crafting your presence through a variety of techniques and metaphors, like the yoga, and then applying it to your daily life and applying it to your professional life, and ready to take that leap. But like you were mentioning earlier, maybe journeying back to corporate, but now you're ready for that leap, potentially.
Yeah, for sure. And even with that whole journey, I've been interviewing at nonprofit organizations, and I've made it to the top 2 or top 3 candidates out of, a large pool. And so that has been great recognition for myself, because I haven't been in the traditional workforce for 10 years. And so every employer looks at that differently. Some may think that I am an incredible asset, but they just want to hear me talk about certain things. And I bet some have questions like, okay, she's done a lot of great things, but she's applying for this really high leadership role, and that she's been an entrepreneur for 10 years. Like, I wear multiple hats every day, but at the same time, it's given me a moment to say, maybe I don't have to prove to myself that I am very worthy of doing this advanced leadership role, when probably, if I'm being honest with myself, take this salary, take this position, rock it out, and you will grow substantially up that quote unquote ladder. But that was another moment of like surrendering, not undermining myself, because I'm very proud of my resume, but it was like, my expectation is I have all this experience. I can go in and make this salary and have this title. It's like, well, actually, I don't want half those responsibilities anyways.
Yeah. Well, that comes with wisdom. I've transitioned back and forth between corporate and entrepreneurial, and each requires what probably the same things that you will need to go through making different transitions from maybe when you were a single person to being a married to being a mother. They're just constant moments of grace.
Constant moments of grace. And I think that was such a big word in 2020 and 2021 when everybody was living on, Zoom and Microsoft Teams and whatnot. Have some grace. It's okay. You don't have to do everything. It's okay if you want to just sit around and be in your sweatpants and have, snacks all day. Like that was one form of grace. It was called survival. But another form of grace is just surrender your expectations that you have of yourself. And the fact that others may also have expectations, whether they're low, high, or whatever, it's like, just speak to it. Just say, hey, I'm going to need an extension, or I won't have that for you by tomorrow at noon. Real talk, this happened in my personal life, which is impacting my capacity and showing up the best way possible. Like ask for things that you're afraid to because of the expectations others have. I'm going to lean into the word surrender now.
When you described leap, I certainly believe that when you pause, become a little more present, give yourself grace, then I think you're really setting yourself up for that leap. Well, Anahita, I hope I have you back in the near future because it's always a pleasure to connect. I feel like we're like kindred spirits / sisters.
I bet. Right before we hopped on this call, we were talking about how, there's some overlap in the history of Iran and Persia and Indians. And I was like, oh, maybe we're sisters from generations before us.
Absolutely. Well, there's so many topics I'd love to kind of reconnect with you about and even hear about the next chapter. And as you know, my focus is really to support female solopreneurs in their holistic journey, personally and professionally. So I feel like you're the perfect soul to speak to.
Thank you for this time. And yes, let's chat again.
Till next time.
Thanks for tuning in, sweet soul. If you've enjoyed this episode, I would be so grateful for your kind review on Apple Podcast. Simply click on the link in the show notes to leave your lovely feedback and uplift our spirits. Your support means the world to me and helps our show thrive. So please show me your love and continue to practice Omni Mindfulness.